Hello and welcome back to the channel. Uh, Today I'm going to take a look at Lee's latest video, this one entitled The Dividing Line of Fake and True Christian and the Tragedy of the Wealthy. I originally planned on handling this video very much like I have the other response videos, but I'm not going to do it that way this time. It's just not worth the trouble. So instead, I'm going to build a list of the major topics that Lee discusses in his video, and we'll just address each one by itself. That way we don't have to look at all the intervening material and listen to a lot of video that doesn't directly address the points he's trying to make. Before we get too far into the video, I want to point out an example of one of Lee's favorite techniques, and that is to just quote other people without actually quoting other people. He'll say things like people say or groups of people say without ever providing any context, no evidence, no proof, no citations, nothing.
Now, some people say, well, look at all these people that claim to be Christian, and they are exactly racist, partial, prejudiced, all these type of things.
That is so typical of Lee. If you need to get people on your side, if you need to have a crowd behind you, just create it. The first major theme that Lee expresses in his video is the idea that favoritism is sin. He talks about favoritism, partiality, and prejudice. And he's absolutely right. He uses James chapter 2 as an example, and that's the discussion of, what do you do when the rich man with rings and fine clothes comes into your meeting? And how do you treat him differently than you do the man who comes in, he's poor and he's wearing filthy clothes? Which one gets the best seat? Who gets the best treatment? In the next section of the video, Lee introduces his next theme, which is that because Americans so heavily favor rich people and the wealthy, that's all they elect to be leaders in government. We only elect rich people.
We see the United States elected people based on saying, hey, these people are rich.
Okay, who knew that Lee now represents the minds of all voters in the U.S., even though he isn't one? This is purely Lee's opinion here, and I think it's based on a deep disdain not only for wealthy people, but also for our electoral system, which Lee considers to be sin. But what Romans 12:2 is really saying isn't don't take part in society. It's saying don't let society's or the world's values shape your character. Stay separate. Don't be affected. Voting is a civic action. It's not the same as letting the world change who you are or shape your heart. And here's something else to think about. If all of us as Christians stay home on election day and don't vote our conscience, who gets to pick all of our leaders then? Think about that for a second. And what about all of the important issues? If we don't vote, then that means that every pro-abortion initiative that comes up will have only pro-abortion voters going for it. We can't afford to sit on our hands and say, oh no, I'm not going to participate in society, tisk, 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 and then let all of the evil happen unopposed because we won't take action. That's just wrong. On the subject of Americans only electing rich people, Lee actually has it backwards here. Many voters respect wealth not because they worship it or the person who has it, but because it often reflects success due to leadership, discipline, and achieved results. Now, he's welcome to critique greed, and I'd be right there with him. applauding that. But let's not pretend that success automatically means exploitation, as Lee implies here. If wealth disqualifies someone from leadership, who exactly does he think should lead? Someone who's never held a job? Someone who's depended on others their whole life? That's not humility, folks. That's making excuses. It's not that Americans want rich leaders because they admire wealth. The system is currently structured so that running a viable campaign requires enormous amounts of capital. And people with money or access to money can survive the primaries, hire staff, buy ads, pay travel expenses to stump on the campaign trail, and so forth. And so the pool of viable candidates ends up being disproportionately wealthy just because they're the only ones who can afford to play in that space. Voters then choose from that constrained pool. Admittedly, it's constrained, which looks like they elect rich people because they're rich if you're not willing to think any deeper than just the surface. Hint, hint. But the deep issue is that the entry cost to serious electoral competition is extremely high. If campaigns were publicly funded, or if paid ads were banned, or if small dollar funding was the norm, the candidate pool might look very different. So the real culprit here is structure, not voter preference. The voters aren't the problem. Wealthy people aren't the problem. The system is the problem. Lee is just wrong on this. So far, we've looked at two major themes from Lee's video. The first is that favoritism is sin, and I'm in complete agreement with that. The second is that Americans only elect rich people. But we've looked at the reasons behind that. It's not because we favor rich people, it's because rich people are the only ones who can afford to run a campaign. Now let's look at Lee's third major theme in his video. That is that wealthy people are rabid dogs that need to be controlled.
So it's like they're putting restrictions on the rich. They're putting regulations on the rich, on those who are successful. They couldn't just take everything. But when you don't have regulations on the rich, they're like a rabid dog that's running loose through the neighborhood, biting people left and right.
Oh, no, you didn't.
That's a cheap shot, even for Lee. This theme shows up in a couple of places throughout the video. You've just seen him tell you in his own words that rich people are like rabid dogs running around biting people left and right. He also makes the point elsewhere in the video that rich people, people who run a business, like every person who runs a business is rich, only wants to minimize wages. They want low wages. They want to take money away from working class people. That kind of language isn't designed to solve anything. It doesn't propose solutions. Lee's language here is designed solely to whip up moral outrage, resentment, and fear of people who have wealth. It's his stock and trade. It's what he does. I agree that favoritism is wrong. But America doesn't elect the rich because they love rich people. We talked about that. Campaigns cost insane amounts of money, so the candidate pool starts out skewed toward wealthy people. If we want to change that, we need to change the system. So let's work together to do that, not just blame people for having money. And on this rich or rabid dog thing, that's just a vulgar caricature that is not worthy of consideration by any logical, reasonable person. Some business models do squeeze labor costs because they are low skill, high commodity operations. So they automate, they replace people, okay, and they cost cut. That's not hatred of workers. That's economics. If you don't want to be in that space, invest in yourself, make yourself more valuable. Because in talent driven industries or serious skilled labor, companies pay big money to attract and keep good workers, and they provide great benefits because they realize that brains and skill and experience are their real product. If you want to make better money, be a better asset. And let's also talk for a minute about the Trump tax changes. Okay, Lee really hates Trump. Trump can't do anything right from Lee's perspective, but he's already doubled the standard deduction that you can take off of your taxes. He's pushing to remove taxes on tips and on overtime. And these are things that directly benefit working class people. He's also working on removing taxes from Social Security, which benefits retired folks on fixed incomes or folks that are on disability. So let's be honest about those things too. And we already have laws against things like wage theft, bribery, tax fraud. We have laws that govern how you can trade stocks in the stock market. And all of those apply to everyone, wealthy and poor alike. If there's a problem in that system, we fix the laws. That's what we do. That's the way our system works. What we don't do is turn entire income groups into rabid dogs. That's the act not of someone who's actually focused on fixing anything, but someone who just wants to puff himself up